it seems like the debate schedule is totally up in the air right now, and how that may or may not play out, because it was a debate that was agreed to by the Biden and Trump campaigns, and there's no more Biden campaign.
And you even heard that statement that the Trump campaign put out about a vice presidential debate. They said they didn't want to put anything out until they knew with absolute certainty who J.D. Vance would be debating, whether it would be Kamala Harris or someone else. Well, very clearly, it's not going to be Kamala Harris on the vice presidential debate stage. It will be someone else, which is why they had not agreed to a specific date on that VP debate or any of the other logistics that go along with that. What I would tell you, Blake, is that the message from the Trump campaign is short but clear, which is that they say they're ready to go, and it doesn't matter who the candidate is that they're going to be facing in the general election. We know that they've been talking about this. They've been watching the other side of the aisle very closely to see how all these conversations about who the Democratic nominee would be play out. But they say that if it is Kamala Harris, when all is said and done and when all the chips fall, they say that they believe that they're in a position to continue doing what they're doing, that their campaign is built around the former president, not built to go after a single Democratic nominee. And that's a distinction that they've been making here. And the other thing as well, Blake, is that the Trump campaign has a lot of optimism coming off of the RNC, coming off of that first debate, to the point that they believe the electoral map is heavily skewed in their favor. The reason for that is they believe they're in a very strong position in the Sun Belt, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, which puts them in very close striking range to get 270 electoral votes. One of those states, such as Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, could be the one that puts them over. But if you look at J.D. Vance's schedule, he's going to be launching his work here with the Trump campaign from Middletown, Ohio, his home state. His first stop is going to be Virginia tomorrow night. That gives you an idea of what the Trump campaign is thinking right now, that they believe that the map is so in their favor that they have the luxury of expanding it and going on offense. We know Virginia isn't the only one. They are also looking at the state of Minnesota opportunistically as well. So they still feel very good, and they don't believe that this really changes anything when it comes to the landscape of the race. They still believe they're in a strong position here. Blake?
You know, it was interesting, Robert, because one of the things I think you're going to hear from Democrats, and I know this from the couple interviews that we've done with Democratic lawmakers here over the last few hours, is they might point to Donald Trump and say, wait a minute, now he's the old guy in the race, right? And I brought that up to Jason Miller just a little while ago, 45 minutes or so ago, here on our coverage. And you know, look, they're going to try to keep the focus on Kamala Harris, at least in the interim, but you got to wonder how the tables have turned and what they're going to be coming up against on the Republican side of things.
And that Trump campaign has been asked about that in the past, about the age of the former president, and their counter-argument to that is, look at the difference between President Biden and former President Trump and the way that the two carry each other. They say, well, clearly using that metric there, that the former president is more nimble and more capable of holding the office than President Biden. But to your point, Blake, now the conversation shifts. Now you have a much younger candidate potentially in Kamala Harris, again, assuming just waiting until see all those chips fall here. But it would be a distinction there. They continue to point to the fact that the former president is on the campaign trail. He has a rather aggressive schedule, which they anticipate is going to get more aggressive as well. So that's what they continue to point to.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.